Why do so many people struggle to find peace, clarity, and power in their thoughts, even when they believe in God? The truth is, your mind was never meant to battle the world on its own. The mind of Christ reveals that real transformation begins when your thoughts come into alignment with divine intelligence, the very mind of God working through you. Dr. Joseph Murphy said that your subconscious mind is like rich soil. It doesn't judge or question. It simply grows whatever seed of thought you plant. If you plant faith, peace, and love, you'll harvest blessings. But if you plant fear and doubt, you'll reap struggle and limitation. In the power of your subconscious mind, Murphy reminds us that when we fill our mind with God's truth, divine power flows effortlessly through us. In this video, you will learn how to align your thoughts with God and overcome the world. Through the wisdom of Dr. Joseph Murphy and the mind of Christ, you have been taught to believe that your circumstances control your thoughts, that the world around you determines what you can think and feel and become. But this is the great deception that keeps humanity bound in chains of limitation and suffering. The mind of Christ operates from an entirely different principle, a principle that turns the world's understanding completely upside down. For Christ's mind does not react to conditions but creates them, does not bow to circumstances but commands them, does not accept the evidence of the senses when that evidence contradicts the higher truth of God's perfect will. When Jesus walked upon the water, he was not defying natural law, but demonstrating a higher law, the law of consciousness that recognizes no limitation except those we accept through our own thinking. And this same mind that was in Christ Jesus is the mind that you are called to develop and express in your own life. The world tells you to look at your bank account and think thoughts of lack, to look at your body and think thoughts of sickness, to look at your relationships and think thoughts of separation and discord. But the mind of Christ looks beyond all appearances to the perfect reality that exists in the mind of God, the reality where you are already whole, already prosperous, already at one with all life. This is not mere positive thinking or wishful dreaming, but the recognition of truth itself. For God's thoughts about you are thoughts of peace and not of evil, thoughts of a future filled with hope and abundant blessing. And when you align your thinking with God's thinking about you, when you refuse to accept any thought that contradicts His perfect love for you, then you begin to experience the miraculous transformation that comes when divine consciousness flows through a willing and prepared mind. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been struggling for years with financial difficulties, working multiple jobs but never seeming to make progress, and she had accepted this as her lot in life, her cross to bear. But when she learned to align her thoughts with God's abundant provision for her, when she began to see herself as God sees her, prospered and blessed and lacking nothing good, her entire financial situation transformed within months as new opportunities appeared seemingly from nowhere, and her income doubled and then tripled. This was not magic, but the natural result of consciousness aligned with truth, for consciousness is the only reality. And when consciousness changes, conditions must change to reflect that new state of awareness. The mind of Christ knows that all power belongs to God, and that you are one with that power when your thoughts are one with His thoughts, when your will is surrendered to His will, when your desires are transformed by His desires for you. You must understand that the battle for your life is fought entirely in the realm of thought. For every condition you experience in the physical world is first conceived and nurtured in the invisible realm of consciousness. And this is why the Apostle Paul instructed us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, to cast down every imagination and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. The carnal mind, the mind that is governed by appearances and circumstances, is enmity against God and cannot please God, for it operates from fear and limitation and separation, always reacting to what it sees rather than creating from what it knows to be true in the spiritual realm. But the mind of Christ operates from love and faith and unity, knowing that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to His purpose, seeing every challenge as an opportunity for God's power to be demonstrated, every seeming obstacle as a stepping stone to greater victory. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been diagnosed with a serious illness and given only months to live, and for weeks he allowed his mind to be filled with thoughts of death and despair, imagining his funeral hour. and feeling sorry for his family. But when he learned to align his thoughts with God's perfect health and wholeness for him, when he began to see his body as the temple of the living God, made in God's image and sustained by God's life, he experienced a complete healing that amazed his doctors and confounded medical science. This transformation did not happen because he ignored his condition or pretended it did not exist, but because he chose to focus on a higher truth, the truth that God's will for him was perfect health and abundant life, and he disciplined his mind to accept only thoughts that were in harmony with this divine truth. Your thoughts are not neutral. They are either building up or tearing down, creating or destroying, blessing or cursing, and every moment you have the choice to think with the mind of Christ or to think with the mind of the world. When you think with the mind of Christ, you think thoughts of love instead of thoughts of fear, thoughts of abundance instead of thoughts of lack, thoughts of healing instead of thoughts of sickness, thoughts of unity instead of thoughts of separation. And as you persist in this divine thinking, these thoughts take form in your experience and manifest as the very conditions you have been contemplating. This is the law of consciousness, as reliable as any physical law, and just as fire always burns and water always flows downhill, so consciousness always manifests itself in corresponding conditions, for as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And what you are thinking about and feeling most deeply is what you are becoming and what you will inevitably experience in your outer world. The greatest enemy of the mind of Christ is not Satan or demons or evil forces outside yourself, but the false beliefs and negative thought patterns that you have accepted as true about yourself and your world. The mental habits that keep you bound to limitation and suffering even when God has prepared abundant blessings for you. These false beliefs operate like mental viruses, infecting every area of your thinking and poisoning your consciousness with doubt and fear and discouragement, convincing you that you are separate from God's love, unworthy of his blessings, powerless to change your circumstances, destined to struggle and suffer and fail. But these beliefs are lies, clever deceptions designed to keep you from discovering your true identity as a beloved child of God, created in his image, endowed with his nature, capable of doing all things through Christ who strengthens you. The mind of Christ recognizes these false beliefs for what they are and refuses to give them power through acceptance and repetition, instead choosing to feed the mind with truth, with the promises of God, with affirmations of divine love and infinite possibility. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had spent decades believing she was not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough to receive God's best, and this belief had manifested in a life of broken relationships, financial struggle, and chronic illness. But when she began to understand her true identity in Christ, when she started declaring daily that she was fearfully and wonderfully made, that she was the apple of God's eye, that she was blessed with every spiritual blessing in heavenly places, her entire life began to transform as she attracted new relationships, new opportunities, and perfect health. This transformation was not sudden but gradual, requiring patience and persistence as she systematically replaced every negative belief with the truth of God's word. But each day brought new evidence that her consciousness was changing and her world was changing to match her new level of awareness. You must become vigilant about the thoughts you allow to take root in your mind, rejecting immediately any thought that contradicts God's perfect will for you, refusing to entertain mental pictures of failure or lack or sickness or separation. Instead, filling your mind with images of success and abundance and health and love. This is not denial of reality, but recognition of the highest reality, the reality of God's kingdom where his will is done perfectly and his children lack no good thing. And as you persist in aligning your thoughts with this divine reality, you will find that your earthly experience begins to conform more and more to the heavenly pattern, demonstrating once again that consciousness is the only reality and that all conditions are simply consciousness made manifest in form. Your subconscious mind is like fertile soil that accepts whatever seeds are planted in it and grows them into corresponding experiences, making no distinction between thoughts that bless and thoughts that curse, between images of success and images of failure, between feelings of love and feelings of fear, but simply taking whatever you give it most consistently and bringing it forth in your life as concrete conditions and circumstances. This is why the mind of Christ must become your conscious discipline, your daily practice, your moment-by-moment choice to think only those thoughts that align with God's perfect will for you, to speak only those words that build up and bless and create good in your life and in the lives of others, to feel only those emotions that draw you closer to God and open your heart to receive His abundant blessings. The subconscious mind operates according to the law of belief, accepting as true whatever you believe most deeply and consistently, and it has the power to move heaven and earth to make your beliefs manifest in your experience, drawing to you the people and circumstances and opportunities that correspond to your dominant mental patterns. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been unemployed for over a year despite having excellent qualifications and sending out hundreds of resumes, and he could not understand why he kept being rejected or ignored. But when he examined his subconscious beliefs, he discovered that deep down he felt unworthy of success, undeserving of a good position, and fearful that he would fail if given the opportunity. So his subconscious mind was actually working against him, sabotaging his efforts and repelling the very opportunities he thought he wanted. When he began to reprogram his subconscious mind with affirmations of his worth and capability and divine right to meaningful work that blessed others and prospered him, when he started visualizing himself succeeding in the perfect position and feeling the joy and gratitude of that success, his entire job search changed as employers began to respond positively, and he received multiple offers within weeks. This demonstrates the incredible power of the subconscious mind when it is programmed with the mind of Christ, when it is filled with thoughts and images and feelings that correspond to God's perfect plan for your life. For the subconscious mind is the connecting link between your conscious thoughts and your manifest experience, the bridge between the invisible realm of spirit and the visible realm of form. The mind of Christ does not struggle or strain or try to force conditions to change, but rests in the absolute certainty that God's will is already accomplished in the spiritual realm and must manifest in the physical realm as surely as the sun rises each morning and the seasons follow their appointed order. This is the principle of mental rest, of conscious faith that knows the work is already done and simply waits in expectancy for the manifestation to appear. And this waiting is not passive resignation, but active receptivity, a state of consciousness that is open and ready to receive whatever God has prepared. When Jesus said to the man with the withered hand, "Stretch forth your hand," he was not asking the man to heal himself, but to act in faith as if the healing had already taken place, to move in accordance with the desired end rather than the present circumstance. And when the man obeyed this instruction, his hand was immediately restored to perfect wholeness. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been trying for years to manifest a loving relationship, doing affirmations and visualizations and attending workshops. But the harder she tried, the more elusive love seemed to become, until she learned to release her desperate need and simply rest in the knowing that God's perfect partner for her already existed and was being drawn to her by divine love itself. And within weeks of adopting this attitude of peaceful expectancy, she met the man who became her loving husband. This illustrates the paradox of manifestation. The more you try to force something to happen, the more you actually push it away from you. But when you rest in faith and let God work through you, what you desire flows to you naturally and effortlessly. The mind of Christ is always at peace because it knows that all good things are already yours in the mind of God, already established in the spiritual realm, already on their way to you through the law of divine attraction, and your only responsibility is to maintain the consciousness that corresponds to your heart's desire, to think and feel and act as if you already possess what you are seeking, to give thanks in advance for the blessing that is already yours in spirit and is simply waiting for the right moment to appear in form. When you truly understand that consciousness is the only reality and that all conditions are simply consciousness objectified, you begin to see every challenge as an opportunity to demonstrate the power of the mind of Christ, every problem as a chance to prove that God's wisdom is greater than human understanding, every seeming defeat as a setup for an even greater victory. This perspective transforms your entire approach to life. shifting you from being a victim of circumstances to being a creator of conditions, from reacting to life to directing life, from being at the mercy of external forces to recognizing that the only force that matters is the power of your own consciousness, aligned with divine truth. The mind of Christ sees beyond appearances to the spiritual reality that underlies all manifestation, knowing that what appears to be solid matter is actually condensed thought. What seems to be fixed conditions are actually crystallized beliefs. What looks like unchangeable circumstances are actually opportunities for transformation through the application of higher law. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that his business was failing and he was facing bankruptcy, with creditors demanding payment and employees threatening to quit, and by all external evidence, he was headed for complete financial ruin. But instead of accepting this appearance as final reality, he began to see his business as God saw it, successful and prosperous and serving many people with excellence. And he disciplined his mind to hold this vision despite the contrary evidence of his senses, giving thanks daily for the turnaround that was already taking place in the invisible realm. And within months, his business experienced a miraculous recovery as new contracts materialized, and old debts were paid, and his company became more profitable than ever before. This transformation was not magic, but the natural result of consciousness operating according to its own inherent laws. For when you change your consciousness, you change your world. When you alter your thinking, you alter your experience. When you shift your beliefs, you shift your reality. The mind of Christ knows that there is no condition so difficult that it cannot be transformed through the application of divine principle, no situation so hopeless that it cannot be redeemed through the power of right thinking, no challenge so great that it cannot be overcome through alignment with God's infinite wisdom and love. This is your inheritance as a child of God, your birthright as one created in His image, your destiny as one called to demonstrate His kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. The transformation of your mind is not a one-time event, but a continuous process of choosing truth over appearance, faith over fear, love over judgment. And this process requires the same dedication and consistency that an athlete brings to physical training or a musician brings to mastering an instrument. Every morning when you awaken, you are presented with the choice to think with the mind of Christ or to think with the mind of the world, to see yourself as God sees you, or to see yourself through the lens of past failures and current limitations, to expect good or to anticipate problems. And the accumulation of these daily choices determines the trajectory of your entire life. The mind of Christ is not developed through occasional moments of inspiration, but through the daily discipline of right thinking, the moment-by-moment practice of choosing thoughts that align with divine truth, the consistent application of spiritual principles regardless of external circumstances or emotional fluctuations. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had tried many times to change her thinking patterns, but always seemed to fall back into old habits of worry and negativity, especially when faced with stress or unexpected challenges, until she learned to treat mental discipline like physical exercise, setting aside specific times each day for prayer and meditation and affirmation, and gradually building her spiritual strength until positive thinking became as natural as breathing. This systematic approach to mental transformation recognizes that the subconscious mind responds to repetition and consistency, that new neural pathways are formed through persistent practice, that lasting change comes not through dramatic breakthroughs but through steady progress in the right direction. You must become like a gardener who tends his plot with daily care, pulling the weeds of negative thought as soon as they appear, watering the seeds of positive belief with consistent attention, protecting the tender shoots of new faith from the harsh winds of doubt and criticism. The mind is indeed like a garden, and whatever you plant there through your thoughts and feelings and mental images will inevitably grow and bear fruit in your experience, producing either the bitter harvest of fear and limitation or the sweet abundance of faith and prosperity. This is why the Scriptures tell us to meditate on God's Word day and night, to let His promises dwell richly in our hearts, to think on things that are true and honest and just and pure and lovely and of good report, for these divine thoughts become the seeds of divine experiences when planted in the fertile soil of a receptive consciousness. The mind of Christ is not achieved through struggle, but through surrender, not through force, but through faith, not through trying harder, but through trusting deeper in God's unfailing love and infinite power to transform every area of your life according to His perfect will. Prayer is not begging God to change your circumstances, but aligning your consciousness with His consciousness. Not pleading for Him to give you what you want, but opening your heart to receive what He has already prepared for you. Not trying to convince Him of your worthiness, but accepting the truth that you are already loved and blessed beyond measure. The mind of Christ approaches prayer from the understanding that God's will for you is perfect good in every area of your life. That He desires your health and happiness and prosperity and success more than you desire these things for yourself, that every prayer is already answered in the spiritual realm before you even speak the words. This transforms prayer from an exercise in desperation to an experience of communion, from a last resort when all else fails to a first response when any need arises, from a duty to be performed to a privilege to be enjoyed. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had prayed for years for healing from a chronic condition, but seemed to receive no answer, growing more frustrated and discouraged with each passing month, until he realized that his prayers were actually expressions of fear rather than declarations of faith, focused on the problem rather than the solution, emphasizing his sickness rather than God's healing power. When he changed his approach and began to pray from the position that he was already healed in God's mind, giving thanks for the perfect health that was his divine inheritance, visualizing himself completely whole and strong, his condition began to improve almost immediately, and within weeks he was completely restored. This demonstrates the crucial difference between prayer that comes from lack and prayer that comes from faith, between prayer that begs and prayer that believes, between prayer that doubts and prayer that declares. The mind of Christ prays with absolute confidence in God's goodness and power, knowing that every sincere prayer is heard and answered according to divine wisdom and perfect timing. When you pray, see your prayer as already answered. Feel the joy and gratitude of receiving what you have asked for. Enter into the consciousness of having rather than wanting, possessing rather than seeking, being blessed rather than hoping to be blessed. This is the prayer of faith that moves mountains and changes circumstances and transforms lives, the prayer that flows from the mind of Christ and aligns with the heart of God. Forgiveness is perhaps the most powerful tool for aligning your mind with the mind of Christ, for unforgiveness creates mental poison that corrupts every area of your thinking and blocks the flow of divine blessing into your life, while forgiveness opens the channels of divine love and releases the creative power of God to work through you in miraculous ways. The mind of Christ understands that forgiveness is not about the other person, but about your own freedom, not about excusing wrong behavior, but about releasing yourself from the prison of resentment and bitterness. Not about forgetting what happened, but about choosing love over hate, peace over anger, blessing over cursing. When you hold unforgiveness in your heart, you are actually drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, binding yourself to the very person and situation you wish to be free from, giving power over your emotional state to someone who may not even know or care about your feelings. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been unable to experience prosperity despite doing all the right affirmations and visualizations, and after careful examination she discovered that she was harboring deep resentment toward her father, who had abandoned the family when she was young, and this unforgiveness was creating an unconscious belief that she did not deserve good things, that love and security would always be taken away from her. When she chose to forgive her father completely, releasing him with love and blessing and understanding, her financial situation began to change immediately as new opportunities opened up and her income increased dramatically. This illustrates the profound connection between forgiveness and prosperity, between love and abundance, between releasing others and receiving blessings, for when your heart is clear of resentment and bitterness, you become a pure channel for God's goodness to flow through you and to you. Forgiveness does not mean that you approve of wrong behavior or that you allow yourself to be mistreated, but rather that you refuse to let the actions of others determine your emotional state or block your connection to divine love. The mind of Christ forgives quickly and completely, seeing beyond the human personality to the divine spark that exists in every person, choosing to bless rather than curse, to heal rather than hurt, to build up rather than tear down. This is not weakness, but the ultimate strength, not naivety, but divine wisdom, not denial, but the recognition that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that forgiveness sets both the forgiver and the forgiven free to experience the abundant life that God intends for all His children. Gratitude is the magnetic force that attracts all good things into your life, the mental attitude that multiplies whatever you already have and opens the door for even greater blessings to flow to you, the consciousness that transforms ordinary experiences into extraordinary miracles and turns simple moments into profound blessings. The mind of Christ is always filled with gratitude because it recognizes that every breath is a gift, every heartbeat is a blessing, every moment of life is an opportunity to experience and express the love of God. And this grateful consciousness becomes a powerful magnet that draws to you more and more reasons to be grateful. When you appreciate what you have appreciates in value and quantity. When you give thanks for your current blessings, you create space in your consciousness for even greater blessings to enter. When you focus on abundance rather than lack, you activate the law of increase that multiplies whatever you focus upon. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been struggling with financial problems for years and constantly complaining about his lack of money, his inadequate income, his inability to afford the things he wanted, until he learned to shift his focus from what he lacked to what he already possessed, expressing daily gratitude for his health, his family, his home, his job, his food, his many freedoms and opportunities. As he developed this habit of appreciation, his financial situation began to improve as raises and bonuses appeared. New income streams opened up, and unexpected money came to him from various sources. This transformation happened not because gratitude magically created money, but because grateful consciousness aligns you with the creative flow of the universe, opens your awareness to opportunities you previously overlooked, and attracts people and circumstances that correspond to your positive mental state. The mind of Christ sees every experience as a gift from God, every challenge as an opportunity for growth, every setback as a setup for comeback, every problem as a chance to demonstrate divine power. And this perspective fills the heart with constant thanksgiving even in the midst of difficult circumstances. Gratitude is not dependent on external conditions, but flows from the understanding that you are eternally loved by God, that His plans for you are good and not evil, that all things work together for your highest good when you trust in His wisdom and love. Start each day by counting your blessings. End each day by giving thanks for the good that came to you, and throughout the day, let your heart overflow with appreciation for the countless ways that God's love is being expressed in your life. And you will find that gratitude becomes the foundation for a life of continuous abundance and joy and peace. The power of spoken words cannot be underestimated in the process of aligning your mind with the mind of Christ. For words are not merely sounds that convey information, but creative forces that shape reality, containers of consciousness that carry either blessing or cursing, life or death, success or failure into manifestation. The Bible tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue, that we shall eat the fruit of our lips, that by our words we are justified, and by our words we are condemned. And this is because words are crystallized thoughts that program the subconscious mind and activate the creative forces of the universe to bring about corresponding experiences. The mind of Christ speaks only words that build up and bless and create good, refusing to give voice to thoughts of fear or doubt or limitation, choosing instead to declare the truth of God's goodness and power and love, regardless of current appearances or circumstances. Every word you speak is a prayer. Every statement you make is an affirmation. Every conversation you have is an opportunity to either strengthen faith or weaken it, to either attract good or repel it, to either create harmony or discord in your experience. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been unconsciously programming herself for failure through her speech patterns, constantly saying things like, "I can't afford it," I never have enough time. I'm always getting sick. Nothing ever works out for me. And these negative declarations were being accepted by her subconscious mind as instructions to create corresponding conditions in her life. When she became aware of this destructive pattern and began to speak only words of faith and prosperity and health and success, her entire life began to change as new opportunities appeared. Her health improved and her relationships became more harmonious. This demonstrates the incredible power of conscious speech, the importance of monitoring your words as carefully as you monitor your thoughts, the need to speak your good into existence rather than talking your problems into permanence. The mind of Christ declares what God declares about you, that you are blessed, that you are loved, that you are prospered, that you are healed, that you are successful, that you are protected, that you are guided, that you are empowered to overcome every obstacle and achieve every worthy goal. Make your words match your faith rather than your fears. Speak your desires rather than your doubts. Affirm the positive rather than confirming the negative. And let every word that proceeds from your mouth be a seed of blessing that will grow into a harvest of good in your life and in the lives of all who hear you speak. The mind of Christ operates from the understanding that time is not linear progression, but eternal presence, that God's blessings are not coming to you in some distant future, but are available to you right now in this very moment, that the kingdom of heaven is not a place you go to after death, but a consciousness you can enter today through the transformation of your thinking. This present moment awareness is crucial to manifesting the life you desire, because the creative power of consciousness can only operate in the now. Not in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future, but in the immediate recognition of God's presence and power working through you to accomplish His perfect will. When Jesus said before Abraham was, "I am," He was declaring the eternal nature of divine consciousness that transcends time and space, that exists in the everlasting now, where all possibilities are simultaneously present and all potentials are waiting to be activated through the focus of awakened awareness. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been postponing his happiness for years, telling himself he would be content when he got the promotion, when he found the right relationship, when he saved enough money, when his health improved, always projecting his good into some imaginary future and thereby missing the abundance that was available to him in each present moment. When he learned to find his joy and peace and satisfaction in the current moment, accepting and appreciating what he had right now while maintaining faith for even greater good to come, his entire experience shifted as he began to notice blessings he had previously overlooked and opportunities he had been too distracted to see. The mind of Christ does not live in the past with its mistakes and regrets, does not live in the future with its hopes and fears, but lives fully in the present moment where God's love is being expressed, where divine guidance is being given, where creative power is being released to manifest whatever is held in consciousness with faith and gratitude. This does not mean that you ignore practical planning or fail to set goals for the future, but rather that you approach all planning and goal setting from a place of present moment peace and trust, knowing that God's timing is perfect and that everything you need will be provided exactly when you need it. The present moment is the point of power where transformation takes place, where healing occurs, where miracles manifest, where divine ideas are received and divine love is experienced. And when you learn to anchor your consciousness in this eternal now, you discover that you have access to infinite resources and unlimited possibilities. Practice bringing your attention back to the present moment whenever you find your mind wandering into past regrets or future anxieties, and in that present moment awareness, you will find the peace that passes understanding, the joy that no circumstance can diminish, the love that casts out all fear, and the power to create exactly the life that God intends for you to live. Visualization is the conscious use of imagination to create mental images that correspond to your desired outcomes, and when these images are held consistently in the mind with feeling and faith, they become impressed upon the subconscious mind, which then works to bring them into physical manifestation through the law of attraction and the principle of correspondence. The mind of Christ uses visualization not as escape from reality, but as the conscious creation of a higher reality. not as wishful thinking, but as the practical application of spiritual law, not as fantasy, but as the preview of coming attractions in your life when you align your imagination with God's perfect will for you. Every great achievement in human history began as an image in someone's mind. Every invention started as a mental picture. Every building was first constructed in the imagination of its architect, and your life is no different as it takes shape according to the mental images you consistently hold and the emotions you attach to those images. When you visualize yourself healthy, you are not denying current symptoms, but focusing on the perfect health that is your divine inheritance. When you visualize yourself prosperous, you are not ignoring present financial challenges, but aligning with the abundance that God has prepared for you. When you visualize yourself successful, you are not pretending about current circumstances, but claiming the victory that is already yours in the mind of God. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been struggling with chronic pain for years and had tried every medical treatment available without lasting relief. But when she began to visualize herself completely pain-free, seeing herself moving with ease and grace, feeling strong and energetic and vibrant, spending 15 minutes each morning and evening in this creative visualization while feeling genuine gratitude for her perfect health, her pain began to diminish gradually, and within months she was completely free from all symptoms. This healing occurred because her consistent visualization reprogrammed her subconscious mind with new instructions about her physical condition, activating the body's natural healing mechanisms and attracting the right treatments and practitioners to support her recovery. The images you hold in your mind are the blueprints from which your life is constructed, the patterns according to which your experiences take shape, the molds into which the creative substance of the universe pours itself to form your reality. Make sure that these mental images correspond to what you truly want to experience, rather than what you fear might happen, that they reflect God's highest good for you rather than your own limited understanding of what is possible, that they inspire feelings of joy and gratitude rather than anxiety and doubt. The principle of mental equivalence teaches that you can only experience in the outer world what you have first established in the inner world of consciousness, that you cannot rise above your own self-concept or attract anything that is inconsistent with your deep beliefs about yourself and your worthiness to receive good. The mind of Christ recognizes that you are created in the image and likeness of God, that you are His beloved child, in whom He is well pleased, that you are worthy of every blessing and capable of every achievement that is in harmony with divine love and service to others. This understanding of your true identity becomes the foundation for developing mental equivalents that correspond to the abundant life that God intends for you to live, replacing false beliefs about limitation and unworthiness with the truth of your divine nature and infinite potential. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that despite his best efforts, he could never seem to earn more than a modest income, and no matter what opportunities came his way, he always ended up back at the same financial level until he realized that deep in his subconscious mind, he had accepted the belief that wealthy people were greedy and selfish, and that having money would somehow make him a bad person. When he changed this mental equivalent by understanding that money is simply a tool for good that allows him to serve others more effectively and support causes he believes in. When he developed the mental equivalent of deserving prosperity because he uses his resources to bless others, his income began to increase steadily as he attracted better opportunities and made wiser financial decisions. This demonstrates that you cannot consistently experience anything that contradicts your fundamental beliefs about yourself and your relationship to the good you desire, which is why it is so important to examine and, if necessary, replace the mental equivalents that govern every area of your life. If you want perfect health, you must develop the mental equivalent of seeing yourself as naturally healthy and vital. If you want loving relationships, you must develop the mental equivalent of being lovable and capable of giving and receiving love. If you want success in your career, you must develop the mental equivalent of being talented and valuable and deserving of recognition and reward. The mind of Christ sees you as God sees you, perfect and whole and blessed and empowered to accomplish great things for His glory. And when you accept this divine assessment of your worth and potential, You automatically develop mental equivalents that attract corresponding experiences into your life. Remember that consciousness is the only reality and that all conditions are consciousness objectified, so whatever you are consistently conscious of being, you will inevitably become and experience in your outer world. Divine guidance is always available to you when you quiet the chatter of the conscious mind and tune into the still small voice of God that speaks in the silence of your heart, offering wisdom and direction and insight that surpasses human understanding and leads you along paths of righteousness for His name's sake. The mind of Christ does not rely on human reasoning alone, but seeks first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, knowing that when divine wisdom guides your decisions, you cannot fail to achieve the highest good for yourself and all concerned. This guidance comes not as dramatic visions or audible voices, but as inner knowing, peaceful assurance, sudden inspiration, and circumstances that open doors in the direction you should go, while closing doors that would lead you away from your highest good. Learning to recognize and follow divine guidance requires developing sensitivity to the subtle impressions that come in moments of quiet receptivity, trusting the hunches and intuitions that arise when you are aligned with love rather than fear, paying attention to the people and opportunities that appear synchronistically when you are following your true path. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been offered 2 job opportunities and could not decide which one to accept based on salary and benefits alone. So she spent time in prayer and meditation asking for divine guidance, and while both positions seemed equally attractive on paper, she felt a deep sense of peace and excitement when she thought about one particular company, even though it offered slightly less money. She chose to follow this inner guidance and discovered that the position she selected led to rapid advancement, wonderful colleagues, and work that deeply fulfilled her sense of purpose, while the other company experienced layoffs and financial difficulties within months. This illustrates the importance of making decisions from spiritual intuition rather than material calculation alone, trusting that God's plans for you are always better than your own limited perspective can envision. Divine guidance operates through your renewed mind when you have established the habit of seeking God's will in all your ways, when you have surrendered your personal agenda to His higher purpose, when you have developed enough faith to follow His leadings even when they don't make sense to human logic. The mind of Christ is always connected to infinite intelligence and perfect love, always guided by wisdom that sees the end from the beginning, always protected by a power that makes all things work together for good. Practice listening for this guidance in the quiet moments of your day, asking for direction when facing important decisions, and trusting that the same God who guides the planets in their courses and the seasons in their cycles is more than able to guide you into the abundant life He has prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Love is the fundamental creative force of the universe, the very essence of God's nature. And when you align your consciousness with love, you align yourself with the power that spoke worlds into existence and continues to sustain all creation through its infinite and unconditional expression. The mind of Christ understands that love is not merely an emotion, but a way of being, not just a feeling, but a creative principle, not only a personal experience, but a universal law that governs all manifestation and determines all outcomes. When you approach any situation from love rather than fear, when you see others through the eyes of compassion rather than judgment, when you speak words of blessing rather than criticism, when you think thoughts of unity rather than separation, you activate the most powerful force in the universe and set in motion the conditions for miraculous transformation in every area of your life. Love dissolves every barrier, heals every wound, forgives every offense, overcomes every obstacle, and creates bridges where there seem to be only walls, bringing harmony where there was discord, peace where there was conflict, abundance where there was lack, and wholeness where there was brokenness. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that his business partnership had deteriorated into constant arguments and mutual resentment, threatening to destroy not only their professional relationship but their friendship and their company. until he decided to apply the principle of love by blessing his partner silently, sending him thoughts of appreciation and goodwill, refusing to speak negatively about him to others, and looking for opportunities to acknowledge his contributions and express gratitude for his efforts. Within weeks, the atmosphere between them began to soften as misunderstandings were cleared up. Communication improved, and they rediscovered the shared vision that had brought them together in the first place, ultimately creating a stronger partnership and a more successful business than either had thought possible. This transformation occurred because love has the power to change consciousness, and when consciousness changes, conditions must change to reflect the new level of awareness, for love is the harmonizing principle that brings all things into divine order and perfect alignment with God's will. The mind of Christ loves unconditionally because it recognizes the divine nature that exists in every person beneath all appearances of human limitation and error, seeing beyond personality to essence, beyond behavior to potential, beyond current manifestation to eternal truth. This does not mean that you ignore wise boundaries or allow yourself to be mistreated, but rather that you maintain an attitude of goodwill and compassion even while protecting yourself from harmful influences. When love becomes your default response to every person and situation you encounter, when blessing becomes your automatic reaction to both friend and foe, when forgiveness becomes your immediate choice when offended or hurt, you become a clear channel for God's love to flow through you into the world, healing and blessing and transforming everything and everyone you touch with divine grace. The ultimate goal of aligning your mind with the mind of Christ is not personal gain but divine service. Not getting what you want, but becoming who God created you to be. Not manifesting your desires, but fulfilling your destiny as a co-creator with the infinite intelligence that governs the universe in perfect love and wisdom. When your consciousness is fully aligned with divine consciousness, you become a blessing to everyone whose life you touch. A healing presence in a world that desperately needs the demonstration of God's love, a light that shines in the darkness and reveals the truth that sets all humanity free from the bondage of fear and limitation and separation. This is your highest calling as a child of God, your greatest privilege as one made in His image, your most important responsibility as a steward of the divine gifts that have been entrusted to your care. And when you accept this calling with humility and dedication, you discover that serving others is the pathway to your own greatest fulfillment, and that blessing others is the secret to experiencing unlimited blessings in your own life. The mind of Christ seeks not to be served, but to serve, not to accumulate, but to distribute, not to hoard blessings, but to share them freely with all who are ready to receive, knowing that in the divine economy, the more you give, the more you receive. The more you bless others, the more you are blessed, the more you contribute to the welfare of humanity. The more the universe conspires to support your own welfare. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had spent years focused primarily on improving her own circumstances through metaphysical study and prayer. And while she experienced some positive changes, she never achieved the dramatic transformation she was seeking until she shifted her focus from getting to giving, from receiving to serving, from personal benefit to universal blessing. And as she began to use her understanding of spiritual principles to help others solve their problems and achieve their goals, she found that her own life became more abundant and fulfilling than she had ever imagined possible. This shift from self-centered consciousness to service-centered consciousness is the ultimate expression of the mind of Christ. The final step in spiritual development, the graduation from studenthood to mastery. And when you reach this level of understanding, you discover that you have not only transformed your own life, but become an instrument for transforming the world through the demonstration of divine love in practical, everyday living that proves to all who observe that the kingdom of heaven is indeed at hand for those who have eyes to see and hearts to receive the infinite blessings that God freely offers to all His children.